Alright, well this is Dune, War for Arrakis, and I've got it on the table right now, and probably the biggest question I see repeated a lot is, I hear this game is like War of the Ring. How is it different? How is it similar? So I thought I'd shoot a quick video and just kind of explore some of that. First of all, if you've played War of the Ring, you'll find a lot of familiarity here, but the game is really quite different in a number of respects. There's going to be a similar feel to it, but this is not like, like War of the Ring and Battle of the Five Armies have a lot more in common than this one versus either of those. Probably the biggest point of commonality is the action dice. You have action dice which you roll before your turn, and it dictates what you can do during your turn. One faction, the bad guys, if you will, the evil faction, has more dice than the good guys do. And again, familiar to players of War of the Ring. Now, you also have two decks of cards, two different kinds of cards will give you two different kinds of benefits, and that's true of the Atreides faction. It's also true of the Harkonnen faction, and again, familiarity with War of the Ring. After that, it starts to decline. There's stacking limits familiar to War of the Ring. In other words, how many figures you can have in a space. And movement's going to feel similar, but combat's different. Combat has special dice in this game and is a little bit more nuanced, I think. And I really like how the combat works in this one. The biggest thing I like about this game is how the characters integrate with the action dice, and it does it in some really cool ways. What you can do with your action dice is dictated by the box beneath the die roll result. And if you roll more results and there are spaces to hold a die, then you get to take the excess and put it into one of the other slots that has the fewest number of available dice. For example, I rolled 3 deployments, and so what I wanted to do with that was maybe some strategy. So I converted that into a strategy marker and put it there. But here's how the characters work. The characters have a card. They also have a figure on the board. The character card will list the same actions as the slot in which that character card will go. Each character has a suit matching the die roll result. And so you're going to take this guy here, Stilgar, and you're going to put him in that slot. And while he's in that slot, one of these dice, when you activate it, it will allow you to move 2 different legions, which are like armies, move 3 different legions, or attack with a legion. If you use the special action in the middle, that's what this character card will do for you, and it's highlighted in a different color. When you do that, then you get to move this card out, flip him over, and you just actually put him off to the side because he has a combat effect that is located down at the bottom of the card, and he can't do that special activity anymore until the next turn. Now, these actions would remain. If you have more action dice in that slot, you can still do the other 2 generic actions from that, but you don't get the special one again. I like how that works. There are, like Gandalf and Aragorn in War of the Ring, there are upgraded versions of Jessica and Paul. For example, in this game, Jessica has been upgraded to Reverend Mother Jessica, whereas Paul is still Paul Atreides. He's not the, was it Muad al-Din or something like that? Anyways. So there's things that you're going to feel familiar, but there's a lot that's quite different. How you win the game is, the bad guys, their victory path is really straightforward, and it's really not difficult to grok. But I will say, I think that the early reviews make it sound like Harkonnen is this powerhouse and they can't be stopped. I'm not finding that to be true at all. I think, well, I'll get to that in a minute. How they win is by increasing the supremacy marker on this track, getting it from 0 to 10, and that's how they win. How they do that is you can convert your spice harvest into points up to a point. Once you pass the 5 slot on that track, you can't do that anymore, but you can convert your spice harvest from your harvesters into points. You can also, the primary way that you're going to do it is by eliminating the sieges, which are these little, think of them as strongholds, free people strongholds like in War of the Ring. They have a hidden value, a numeric value of 1 to 3. Well, there's my other 3. The Atreides player can always look at his own. The Harkonnen player can't. And by the way, I'm playing actually the solo version of this right now. So in case you're wondering, I'm not cheating during my game by looking at that. I'm freely allowed to do so. the value, the higher the value, the more powerful that siege is and more difficult it is to overcome it. But on the other hand, it's more points on the supremacy track. You are up against a clock. You can't play indefinitely because the Atreides faction, their victory path is a little bit more nuanced and it's more subtle. It's going to take some more time to do, but I believe it's entirely achievable. There are, I believe, 6 of these cards, a different variety on each of them, and it gives you a numeric value next to a suit. There's the, I don't remember what these are called, but there's the green, the yellow, and the red. And so what you have to do during the course of the game is you got to get these prescience points of the 3 suits up to that numeric value on the prescience track, which is located here. Now, how you do that is, and I'm sorry for the glare, I do have my cards sleeved. There are these cards that are going to come out of a deck each turn. Normally, there's 3 of them put out in front of everybody to see. In the solo game, there's only 2 available. And you look at the requirements on them, and you try to do it either during the action round or at the end of the game turn. And if you succeed at that, you get that number of points, and the card comes out of play out of the deck. That deck does get reshuffled each turn. So, use it or not, it could get, you could see it again, but there's no guarantee of that. And so one of the subtle things the Harkonnen player needs to be aware of is while they're making the mad dash for supremacy points, they also do need to be mindful that they don't let Atreides get all the prescience points in the game. There's also these eco stations around the board that have a hidden side that when a Atreides Legion moves into it, it's going to be one of these 3 suits, and that will again move the prescience marker up. Now, just like in War of the Ring, you can attack the evil people's strongholds, for lack of a better term. There's these Harkonnen strongholds located here, 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 and at the pole here. If you attack those and succeed at defeating them, then the numeric value on the reverse side of that will impact all 3 suits on this track here. And as these markers go up on the prescience track, they also will introduce new characters or upgraded versions of characters like Paul, Jessica, and so forth. And here introduces Alia, I think is her name. When you get up here, you can actually nuke the board using the family atomics and change the mountains into plateau. Basically allows access now for the Coriolis storms and access for the Atreides legions to get into the interior of the Harkonnen stronghold, which is surrounded by mountains and therefore protected from the storms. So I hope hopefully from this, you get a sense that this is a very, very different game. The planning cards, let me show you some of them here. The cards from the deck do not have 2 different things that you can do on them, like you have in War of the Ring or Battle 5 Armies or any of that genre. It's one thing that you can do, but the different decks give you different kinds of advantages. For example, the Fremen Ally deck gives the Atreides faction more desert power oriented advantages, whereas the Atreides faction gives other kinds of advantages. But you can always discard one of these cards in order to use a combat effect, which is to give you 1 additional die in battle, which may be essential in a particular battle, but you can never roll more than 6 dice. So you're not always going to have that available to you, but you may at sometimes want to do that if you want to hold on to a siege or press an advantage in an attack that's dragging on round after round. There's also air units in the game which do allow you to kind of move around the map rapidly. If you're the Harkonnen faction, you basically remove the orthnopters or whatever they're called off the map. You can see there's these sector lines that encompass many different areas. If you remove this, anybody in this swath of territory, any one of those armies could be picked up and moved 2 spaces rather than the normal 1 space per action die. The carryalls basically protect the harvesters from sandworms. Sandworms can do devastating attacks. There's really no parallel I can think of for War of the Ring for these guys. But the sandworms and the signs of sandworms, these tokens that the Atreides player can place down on the board for free. They don't have to use an action die. During your turn, if you have fewer action dice available than your opponent, then you can, instead of using one of these, you can plop down 2 of these markers, or you can move sandworms, or you can remove a sandworm to attack a Harkonnen legion that's adjacent. For example, I could remove that guy to attack that legion. So there are some things that are completely different than what you would have in War of the Ring. The setup is going to be different every time. There's a randomizer to the setup, so your Atreides strength, the strength of your units is hidden, concealed by these tokens. When you recruit new units, they're recruited secretly by the way of drawing these tokens, and the limiting factor is once you're out of these tokens, you can't deploy any more new units for Atreides. So that's kind of like the miniature limit that you have in War of the Ring. So there is, I guess, a parallel there. What is very different, I think, is that Harkonnen starts with all 8 of their dice available at the beginning, and they're going to gradually lose dice throughout the game. And the Atreides faction is going to have 4. It's always going to have 4, but occasionally they'll have Bene Gesserit token to use, which is like an action die. You can place it anywhere you want and spend it, but once you spend it, it's gone forever. And so what's going to happen is this faction is going to start very strong. It's gradually going to get weaker, and it grows weaker basically relative to the positioning of these tokens on the spice track. As these go down, you have to remove dice from the game to put in the lowest most slot and each slot above that. So one of the things that Atreides can do is, instead of going after prescience, or in addition to going after prescience, is to knock down these and destroy these harvesters in order to hurt the Harkonnen economically. I think if you think about this game as a massive counterinsurgency game, I think that you'll find that playing the Atreides faction is a lot of fun, and playing the Harkonnen faction is a lot of fun, but they are very different from one another. In that respect, I would say this game is more asymmetric than War of the Ring. There is an asymmetry to War of the Ring, but I think this one is perhaps more so. So which game should I get? Well, figure out which book you like or series of books you like. I would say get both of them. They are very different, but they will have a similar feel. Hopefully this video will help you get a sense for what you're getting into with Dune or for Arrakis. I'm really enjoying this one.